Hey, I'm Alan Furstenberg,
I'm Mark Tucker, and welcome to Two Voice Devs.
Two Voice Devs. Happy New Year, Mark.
Happy New Year to you. It's the end of 2025, and we're just beginning 2026. So I'm glad it's a different year.
Yes, I'm
This one's been a
glad
hard one for me.
this was a hard year. This was, I feel like certainly the past few months have been really, really rough on me. But then when I look back at the whole year, I'm like, oh man, it's been a year.
Yeah, well, and I watched a little bit of our episode this time last year just to kind of say, well, like, what do we think was going to happen? And I'm just like, whoa, there's just about, and just thinking back about like what we've covered even in the episodes throughout this year, there's just lots and
You know
lots
what
of stuff.
what's amazing to me looking at, last year, this episode last year, we're like, so much has happened in the past year. And I go back and I look at what happened this year and I'm like, so much more happened this
Yeah, I
year.
know, definitely more companies putting on the accelerator, pushing stuff out.
Right. Just as an example, here's a graphic that I prepared just for Google illustrating how much has happened in the past year. And literally, as the graphic says, there were multiple announcements every single week.
Well, and you were purposely keeping track, right, this last year?
Yeah, I was keeping track because the year before couldn't find any authoritative source that listed everything that happened. So this year I tried to keep up and I couldn't. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know what's missing from that list even.
Well, you've got new models, you've got different product releases, you've got integrations, you've got frameworks. There's all
Just
kinds of things.
and just fundamental new approaches to things. I mean,
Yeah,
this time last year we didn't have terms like MCP or A2A.
yeah,
They weren't on our radar. And now everybody is talking about MCP. A2A is incredibly hot. You know, all of these, and these aren't even, I mean, they're AI technologies on some level, but they're more like AI integration technologies. They're that next step that we're like, so what's going to happen next? We didn't
yeah.
anticipate.
Well,
I'm not sure anybody did.
yeah, one of our first episodes that we talked about with generative AI was talking about what is RAG and how do you do RAG and all the different components. Now you throw documents in a certain place and RAG just happens,
Right.
or
We just take it for granted. I mean, there have been some interesting rag like announcements over the past year, but we just take it for granted now.
yeah.
And I mean, in some ways that's good. In other ways, just keeping up with everything is exhausting. I mean, the last 3 months for me have been exhausting in so many ways, and I promise, sometime in 2026 we'll talk about why. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I know
but
why, and yes,
but
he's been
yeah,
very busy.
but just keeping up with everything has been amazing.
So let's just take a couple minutes and talk about some of the things that did happen in 2025. Some of the technologies or different points in AI and even voice, because we're still two voice devs.
We're still two voice
Um,
devs, and there have been voice stuff that's been announced.
there's been more stuff. So yeah, why don't you go ahead and hit a couple points, and I'll hit a couple points, and we'll kind of go back and forth until we kind of cover what we think or want to bring out about what happened in 2025.
I think one of the story, the end of 2024, we were saying we think we're going to see more and more about agents and agentic stuff, and I think sure enough, agents were the big word of
Yep.
2025. And I think that they're only still just starting to emerge. So we saw the A2A, the agent to agent protocol, start to get some traction, and we're seeing people talking about how do we build these agents. We're seeing Google's agent development kit. We're seeing LangGraph from LangChain kind of got rolled into LangChain itself. So LangChain is now more of an agentic package. Um, I think agents were clearly the big thing in 2025, and yet they still didn't meet what we expected. You know, we were kind of expecting things like autonomous agents were going to be a bigger thing, and we didn't hear a lot about that, I don't think.
Yeah, so some of the things that I thought about on the side of agents was just how, you know, it used to be we talked about prompt engineering and we talked about models and how do you code against a model. And then, you know, like we said, we moved to more context engineering and agentic solutions. And think it was interesting because we saw in 2025 Microsoft came out with Microsoft Agent Framework. And that was something that was replacing semantic kernel and autogen that were really only just created a couple of years ago. So we're already seeing, you know, kind of the next cycle of cycling out older frameworks to catch up with the newer models that can do thinking, that can do function calling, that can do a lot of the stuff that we really want agents to do. And so I think that was one of the things that I found was interesting is that we're kind of like making another cycle inside of this bigger, you know, we're like, yeah, we're already in this situation where things have changed so that you know, frameworks that were created back when the completions API first came out is you know old technology, and things are moving to the responses API where you get function calling and you get you know some of the different thinking models. You've got a lot of different you know new things that are going in, and so
Right.
the frameworks are trying to catch up and kind of make things easier, but also take advantage of the newer things. And you saw some of that same stuff with updates that you needed to do to the integration with LangChain,
Right.
right?
As Google started introducing, their thinking or reasoning models, it changed a lot of ways about how we needed to provide that integration. And Google has a new integrations API as well. And it's an interesting API and it's great. And it does start thinking more about what does a long-term agentic future look like, but it's a big change in how we need to think about and approach this.
Right. So, you know, we already have this evolving frameworks, constantly improving, evolving models, more things being done by the model, but also more things that we should do in code for guardrails or
But
other things.
but even when we're thinking about, more things in code, we now have more and more code assistants that are helping us do that. I mean,
Exactly.
I go look at the list of just what Google has released, and they have 4 or 5 different code assistants. And the big players in code assistants are doing amazing stuff.
And since I've you know made a switch and been focusing more on what Microsoft technologies are and what they're doing in AI, I've jumped into to more GitHub Copilot and just amazed at agent mode inside of that. That's helping you to code and kind of like how can you give specs and guide the agent to do things that follow certain you know coding conventions or the way that you want to do things, and you know also kind of how do you rein an agent in so it doesn't just go out and try to create like a whole project for you, but like help you go through and create certain sections only or focus on phase one, phase two, or
Right. But also at the same time, we're seeing people that are reporting they're still having some pretty good luck at just having it,
yep.
you know, write the whole thing for them, which I still find very surprising. My experience has not been that good.
Yeah.
But there are people doing some amazing stuff, it sounds like.
Yeah, but it is more amazing, like just how much of an improved tool that coding assistant is basically to developers as they're trying to understand technologies or frameworks or you know solve a specific problem or get something coded quickly, all that
Definitely.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So let's talk about voice. This was the year that Alexa Plus finally started coming out.
finally rolled
Go-
out. Yeah.
Google's been replacing Google Assistant with Gemini on all of its devices. What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Yeah, same thing. I've got the new rollout of Alexa Plus. Kind of unfortunately, I haven't used it as much as I think what's happened though is that there was just this long time where it was really limited in what it could answer, and so you just kind of you're
Got
not
used to
used
that.
to asking
Yeah,
those types of questions. Like, sure, I set alarms and timers and kind of all the basic bread and butter voice control things. It's just that I don't feel like that I can ask it the same things that I could ask, ChatGPT or other things like that. I'm sure it can now, but I just really haven't tried it. It's just that muscle is it
yeah.
hasn't been.
I feel like for me, Gemini has just, it's not delivering anything on the smart devices that I'm really looking for. When I'm looking to have a conversation, I'm looking to have a conversation about something specific and visual and tie it into three other things. When I'm asking a question of Gemini on my smart speaker, I'm asking it to do something. And I don't think it's really that good at doing something yet. And
Yeah,
we haven't seen the third party integration for either platform yet, have we?
no, not really.
I mean, we've seen teases about it on the Alexa Plus side, but nothing on the Gemini side. One of the big things at I/O was that they're talking about smart glasses again. Um, and as the end of the year came up, we're seeing more and more about smart glasses, and all of this is being driven by Gemini. Gemini is the primary interface on these devices. But when I go to ask questions like, well, okay, how do I write a third party app for that? I kind of get these blank looks.
Like, why would you want to do that? Or
Or you just write an app. I'm like, yeah, but how does that app get launched from Gemini? Uh,
yeah,
so I think there are still lots of questions. I really hope they get answered in 2026.
yeah.
Really, really, Noble and I are just itching to have an episode where we talk about Android XR and other smart glasses and how we as developers can really, really use this stuff well.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
itching for it.
yeah, and so and how to create apps or APIs,
Yeah.
whatever it is that it is going to be for these things. You kind of think, well, is the solution MCP? Model Context Protocol was huge. You see plugins for all kinds of things like GitHub Copilot. It can plug in specifically to the documentation for Azure. So when I'm asking specific questions, it pulls that in. I just see that more and more and more things are getting created with MCP in it, for good or bad. I think there's definitely some improvements that need to be happened for that protocol,
Desperately
but
need to
it
happen.
but it, but it is making progress, and it is being used. And so that might be the future. But then, like, what is the motivation for me to write an MCP server that's specifically to, I don't know, a voice game that's going to be on Alexa? How am I going to get found? How am I going to get
Well, exactly.
reimbursed for my time and effort? What's
I mean, here's the thing is that once again, we have the fragments of a protocol there, and all of the lessons that we learned about what not to do, they fell into the same mistakes. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
so we don't have a monetization answer for MCP. We don't have the discovery answer for MCP. We barely have a security story for
yeah,
MCP. And maybe it's not MCP specifically, but we do need to figure out, we collectively as an industry need to figure out how are we going to plug in stuff into these models. And we've been talking about that for 2 years, and I don't think we have a solid answer yet. And I
no, we
don't
don't.
know if 2026 will bring it. I hope it does, but I don't know it.
Kind of seems like it still might be too soon for even 2026.
And
I'm
but here's the thing, we need that in order
Yeah,
for the smart glasses, for these ubiquitous ambient artificial intelligent devices to really do what we want them to do. And if we don't get it, it's going to suffer the same fate that Assistant and Glass suffered in the past.
yeah. I think there are technical solutions to this situation. I think it's early in the fact that it's not something that that's really being focused on.
Yeah.
I think energy is being put someplace else, and so
Energy is being put everywhere, though. I mean,
oh my
that's
gosh. Last thing I think I wanted to bring up is just kind of more of the some of the Microsoft focused stuff that I've been able to work on. Learned a lot more about Microsoft Foundry as a place to find models, compare models. So that in some ways that kind of helps better evaluate which model you're going to use for certain situations. But it's becoming more and more, especially with their Microsoft Ignite announcements in November, where more things are going to be put into Microsoft Foundry. Its ability to create agents using the Foundry agent service, which is just more filling out a form of information, putting documents in a store, connecting to other agents, specifying your tools. So it's a GUI for doing what we would normally do in code. Then being able to take assistants that are coded or agents that are coded in different frameworks like Microsoft Agent Framework or LangGraph, or I think there'll be more available, but push them to Foundry in such a way that they are Docker containers, and then Foundry actually hosts those services, and you can connect to it. And then the last thing that I was doing some more research on this year was taking an agent that's hosted externally and grab its endpoint and registration information and register that in Foundry. So there's just it's interesting, at least this viewpoint where Microsoft is like take the agent that's declarative, take an agent that's in code, take an external agent, and let's try to figure out how we can put them all in one place, and then start figuring out how we can interact better with them.
so two things from that kind of made me think about it. One was that we are seeing more and more of these low code, no code AI agent building systems coming out there.
Yeah,
So we've got them from Microsoft, we've got them from Google. Our friends at VoiceFlow are still doing some incredible stuff. But I think we're going to
right.
see I think you're right. We're going to see a lot more of that as well. The other and that kind of goes along with the vibe coding,
Yeah.
influences that we're seeing out there. How do we tie vibe coding and low code, no code? How does all of that come together? Because it's starting to. I
Well,
think
yeah, I think you're right. And so, for example, I'm trying to figure out all how Microsoft's putting all the different pieces together is that you can type in a description of an agent that you want to create, and it can generate an agent for you. You can use something like Copilot Studio and some of its visual tools to define workflows and set up your documents for RAG and other things like that. But we're also seeing something very similar in the new Microsoft Foundry for more the code side of things, but that you can still do define workflows and things visually. What was interesting, and I'm curious to learn more in 2026, is that they said under the cover that whole underlying technology across that whole different ways of creating agents is Microsoft Agent Framework. That's one of the things I want to look forward to in 2026 is to better understand what that means. And right now there is kind of a disconnect. If you create an agent in Copilot Studio, there's only certain places that you can use it. If you create an agent in Foundry, there's only certain places that you can use it. And if we can get to a point across the Microsoft ecosystem that it doesn't matter how you create the agent, you can use it everywhere, then that really starts to build these hybrid teams of for some of the agents are going to be created by more of the kind of the vibe coding or the business specialist route, and some of it's going to be coded by developers and architects of different systems. So I think that's one area that I'm going to look out for in 2026.
I think the other thing you pointed out is that we're seeing the cloud platforms more and more bringing that platform capability to agents. So being able to, so Microsoft saying, here's where you deploy your agent, and Google saying, here's where you deploy your agent and tie it into all of these other services that an agent needs, like a memory service and your
Yep.
rags, all of those components all coming in one place. And that makes me realize I really haven't heard much from Amazon on any
Yeah,
of this. I mean, Bedrock is there, but not
yeah.
much.
I know there was a big, there was the what is it? Ignite? Is that
Ignite, yeah.
the conference? Um, I didn't follow much of what was happening there, so I probably do need to, to be fair, I need to go back and review that. But it still seems like they've got a lot of running to do to catch up.
And it's funny. Back in 2024, we highlighted the same problem and we said, "So do
Yeah,
you think Amazon's going to catch up?" And we were both like, "Oh yeah, Amazon will catch up."
yeah.
I
I don't
don't
think
think
they have yet.
so. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
Um, I think the final other big technology that I was thinking about that happened in 2025 was we started seeing the live agents coming online. So we saw OpenAI and then Google introducing these live models where you're streaming content to it and it's streaming a responses back. And we saw that in the recent episode that you and I did, looking at the Microsoft's agent platform, where it had that live voice integration.
yeah,
We saw a little tease of it back in 2024 at I/O, and even more of it in 2025 at I/O. And then the model itself is out there, so anybody can build it, where you can stream video and audio and text, and it streams stuff back.
yeah,
Um, Pretty amazing. The token cost on that is huge, though.
yeah,
So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. But that was definitely something in 2025 that kind of seemed like it was going to be huge. And by the end, we didn't really hear nearly as much about it. So I'm kind of curious where that goes next year.
yeah.
Okay. So what's your big prediction for 2026?
All right. I had thought about this before you mentioned our friends over at VoiceFlow. I'm surprised that they have not been acquired yet.
Interesting.
I don't know if that is by design, if they want to keep being a company, if that's, or if they're looking for an exit. If they are looking for, somebody to acquire them, they would be a great candidate. They're doing remarkable
I
things. They've
agree.
always done great things. So, um, I think if it's going to happen, this will be the year that VoiceFlow gets acquired or has some amazing new partnership that's different from what they've done before.
And if so, I wish them all the best luck because
I do
they're
too.
fantastic group of people. I wish all the best for them. So I think my big prediction probably echoes a lot my big prediction from last year, but I've got two. The first is going to be agents are going to be the big thing, but I
Yep.
really think we're now going to move away from that chatbot model and more towards autonomous agents. So we're going to be talking more about agent autonomy. We're going to be talking about long running agents. And as developers, not just how we build them, but how we maintain that communication with them. Where does that tap in? Does that, they start sending us text messages, they sending us email. Where does that work? How do we keep in touch with our long running agents? When something happens, how do they get in touch with us? And I think part of the answer of that, of course, is going to be the smart glasses. I am cautiously and very, very cautiously optimistic about smart glasses. Now, mind you, I think 3 months ago I was cautiously pessimistic about them, and 6 months from now I may be cautiously pessimistic again. Once
But
I,
right now,
but at this instant, I'm I'm I just I need to replace my glass, and it needs to be blue, and it needs to like really embrace that model that I think autonomous agents do embrace of there when you need it and out of the way when you don't. I want my autonomous agents acting on my behalf, but staying out of the way for the most part. And then when I need them to, I will either ask them to be there or they'll send me that notification saying, hey, this needs your attention right now. Um,
Remember that question that you asked me that I said I'd go research? I've got an answer now. Let me know
yeah.
when you want to talk about it.
Or remember when you told me to let you know when there's email that looks kind of suspicious? Well, I got news for you. Those sorts of events.
Yeah.
Um, I think our agents are getting there. I'm not sure people are thinking past the chatbot stage yet, but we're getting awfully close.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think this plugs into my other prediction. We've talked a little bit about small language models before,
Yes.
and I think that we're going to see more. I think we're getting ready, and I think maybe autonomous might be a use for that. Sometimes you need your agent to do multiple things, and one of those steps might be something that's really simple, requires a small model, or even maybe very specific to a domain and might need a fine-tuned, specialist model. I think as we get multiple agents either working together or breaking apart a larger problem, that we're going to see some of those are going to be using small language models.
I think that's a great call. I think the age of the tremendous agents, I think we'll certainly see successors to GPT and
Yeah. Oh,
Gemini.
yeah.
Well, we'll certainly see successors to those, but I think the progress there is going to slow. And the real progress will be in the smaller agents, the ones that run locally,
Yeah.
being able to do 95% of what those big agents are doing, or being able to do broken up into chunks 95%. So you'll have one
Yeah.
agent that can do this chunk, and another agent that can do tool calling, and another agent that can do entity recognition really well, and all of those together will be almost as good as that huge one, and those will be able to run locally. So I think you're absolutely right. That's a good call.
Those are the two
Um,
big things. Hopefully, great things for. We'll look forward to our friends at VoiceFlow and also small language models on my side. And once again, your prediction things to watch for next year are
Autonomous agents and smart glasses.
right.
So a year from now, we will be back to see how we did,
Yeah.
and hopefully along the way we will have many more of these conversations between you and I, and bring in several more guest hosts, and we'll see what goes on in this crazy, crazy world. Hopefully, next year will be a little bit more sedate on all fronts, and we will, of course, cover it all on Two Voice Devs.
Two voice devs. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks everyone for joining us on this journey. Have a great year.
Take care.